Alright, so today's featured vehicle is a Totguard T266, which is a 26-inch electric bike. Today's project is we're going to be changing out the crank arms and the bottom bracket. So what we're going to do, or the reason why we're doing it, is because mine is kind of stripped here. On the bike itself, it's probably just the crank arm that's stripped, but see, that's not good. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and change out the bottom bracket just because the parts are not that expensive. We're going to be using Shimano parts to replace it with as far as the bottom bracket is concerned and the crank arm. So let's get to it. Easy enough for me to just turn the bike upside down. Make sure that you're not crushing anything. So I've got it sitting on the hand grips in the front, and on the back it's on the seat. So upside down gives me easy access. Clean it up, dust off, wipe off any particles of dirt so that as you open it up you won't have a bunch of unnecessary things falling in. So this will give me access to this side and the other side. General tools is what I'll be using, as well as some specialized tools. So we'll kind of do this in order as used. So we have a 8mm that's going to be used to pull off the crank arm bolts. I'm using that with a 3/8 drive socket. To take off the crank arms, I've got this crank puller. I'll show you how to use that. So that's a crank puller tool. This sits inside of the crank, and then when you tap it down, it basically pulls the crank off of the bottom bracket shaft. This is a tool that uses along with it. Came with it together, so I bought that off of Amazon. This one, which is the bottom bracket removal tool. So this is supposed to go inside the little splines, and it could be used with a 1/2-inch drive or a wrench or open-end wrench. I'm going to be using my 1/2-inch drive because I got a long arm on there and I don't know how tight it is. If you have an adjustable wrench, it could be useful. I'm also going to use a simple pry tool. You can use a flathead screwdriver, but I'm going to use this to take off the switch or sensor here. So I'm going to use it in between. That'll give me a little bit more leverage as opposed to a screwdriver, because I don't want to damage this whatsoever. As you see, it's got a cable running into there. The parts that I'm using for my bottom bracket is the Shimano BUN 300. This is perfect for my bike size, which is a 68 by, I think it was 120 or something like that. I forget exactly the dimension. So what you need to know is from here to here, which mine was 68, and from the end of the shaft to the other end of the shaft, which is 122.5, if I remember correctly when I measured it. Also, we're going to be changing the crank arm, as I said. So crank arm, going to be using Shimano crank arms. Also got this off of Amazon. Did I say eBay or Amazon that I got this? I got this off Amazon if I said eBay. Sorry about that. And I'm replacing mine with a triple sprocket. I know some people like to just use a single sprocket because they don't like changing gears. We do actually use this bike as a regular bike sometimes, and we do actually crank it. We don't use just full throttle all the time. So we want to maintain the Totguard stock triple. What I did was I counted the spokes on each one in order to get an exact setup, so I didn't need to do any changes or upgrades. Also, I made sure this one with the crank arm sitting totally to the side, I've got a diamond pattern as opposed to a square pattern, you know what I mean? So that here, if I were to look at it with the crank arm off, I've already taken this off once before, and I know it's in a diamond pattern, so that's what I'm matching. All right. Also, you're going to need some lubricant. It's recommended inside to help out. When we put that together, you'll see me putting some lubricant on it, so some general lubricant will be good for that. And a towel or paper towel to clean it up inside. So you'll see me using those items that I'm not actually showing you here as we go on in the video. All right, let's start out with the what I call the easy side. Going to be using my 8mm with a drive. We're going to be loosening this up. This is already pretty loose, so it comes out fairly easy. And since mine is stripped, it's actually going to slide off, and I don't need to use the crank arm puller. Now, if you're doing it like mine, you probably want to take your pedals off first. But I'll just do that later because this video is not about the pedals. We're talking mostly about the bottom bracket and our crank arms. So that's pretty much straightforward. And I don't know if you can see in there. See how it's kind of stripped inside? Let's see if we can get a good view of that. See how it's got these little marks right here? So it's so worn out inside of there. There we go, that's a good verse. See inside it's kind of like got those little markings. It's so worn out on this because this is aluminum, that's usually steel. It's pretty much just kind of rounded out a little bit. It doesn't have the tapered anymore, which allows it to fix down. This probably is good, but like I said, since this piece is pretty inexpensive, we bought this bike secondhand when it only had like 300 and something miles on it. I don't know how many miles we have on it now, Chris.
Like 1,000.
It's got like 1,000 miles on it, so we've put a lot of use on it. So it's been worth doing some upgrades on this bike. This unit here, it looks normal, but it looks worn. I am not used to working with the e-bikes, so to me it just makes sense to change this out, because if I don't and I put new cranks on there, it's probably going to strip it. So continuing on, we're going to remove this little piece here next. So I'm going to get up in there with the separator tool. It kind of moves on its own, but I'm just making sure that it's an even movement. Just kind of getting underneath. Here, show you what I'm doing. Just kind of getting in between and just kind of wiggling it. I want it to come off straight and even. It sits on the splines inside, so it has a certain way that it fits. So looking at this, I can see this point is not perfectly straight. So if I were to make a line, for example, it's a little bit to the right. So I'm going to remember that setup when I put it back on. So I'm just wiggling it, separating it, and slowly pulling off, because there's not a lot of play in here. It's only this little curve left, so it's not a lot of play. Be very careful. Don't just slide it off of there like crazy, or pull it off or yank it off. Slide it back to do it carefully so you don't mess up any of the cabling. I'm going to take it all the way off the edge, being very careful with it, and that's it. So on the bottom, you see it's got those little splines on it. I'm going to set that over to the side, and you can see inside of here it's got the little spline groove, so that's what kind of locks it into place there, right? So we're just going to set this off to the side, just so it's kind of out of my way. It doesn't want to cooperate, so I'm going to get a piece of tape and just kind of hold it over right there out of my way. Alright, there we are. So I just kind of put some tape on it, just kind of hold it out of my way so we can get in there and do that next. Actually, no, we're not going to do that next. We're going to remove the other side first. So let's get over here. Pretty much the same thing like we did on the first side. We're going to remove the 8mm, and then we're going to see if this can pull out easily or if we need to use the tool now. Alright, so setting ourselves up to remove this one, I'm going to do something really simple, which is I'm going to get the chain out of my way now instead of later. So basically, since we have this tension that can be pulled up on it, I'm just going to pull it up and around and let it hang down. Right now this is in my way, but once I get that off, I'll be able to slide it out, as my assumption would. So I'm not going to take off the guardrail or anything like that. I'm just going to do it just like it is. Since I'm working with the bike upside down, that's an easy way for me to go. If you're working with your bike right side up, maybe you need to take off your rail, because you're going to remove it most likely from the top to make it easier for what you need to do. Alright, let's get that in a good spot. So using my 8mm, I've already loosened this up for camera's sake, so you should have a little bit of tension on it to begin with. If your kit does not come with 8mm bolts to replace, make sure you don't lose these. Alright, so that came off pretty simple. As I figured, it's not loose, no problem. Let's widen this out a little bit. It's not loose, so we're going to go in with our tools. So with our removal tool, they usually come in 2 pieces. I like to take it all the way out. There we are. And using this, it threads inside. So let's take a look inside of there. So inside of there, let's get some focus. There we go. Got a little threading going on. There we go. So that's what you want to thread with, but we do not want to cross thread this. So when you put it on, you're going to kind of set it on there, twist it lefty-loosey until you hear it set or feel it set, because you don't want it crooked. You don't want to go in crooked and cross thread it. So what we're doing is avoiding possible cross threading by setting it. Setting it is where you kind of twist it backwards. Did you just hear that click? Let me do it again and not talk. Right there, it just set into place, which also means now I can easily twist it forward. Make sure you get as many threads as possible captured on here. You don't want just 2 threads deep, because when you go to use that force to pull it off, you could end up stripping your crank arm, and then that's just going to make your whole thing a lot harder to do. Alright, we're going to use our tool with this to kind of crank it all the way to get as many threads as possible set. Here, let me put this back up. Alright, that feels pretty good. Now we're going to thread this back in there. So when you go to buy one, you know what? From the design of this, it has a really large hex that goes in there, but it also has this tool which you can do it like this. So I forgot to put that on there first. So it goes like that basically. Okay. If you're using the adjustable wrench, it's not going to matter, because you're just going to use the wrench to do it. So it's sitting all the way in there almost. Wow, that goes deep. There we go. Now I'm getting some back pressure. Okay. So now what I'm doing is using the pedal to hold my, there we go, to hold my leverage, and I'm gonna tighten this up to pull it off. It's not a lot of leverage on this handle. Well, it doesn't want to budge, but it's slowly going. What I need is a longer tool to get this off. And now you see how much force I'm doing, why you definitely need that extra threading to go all the way in, because you don't want to strip that out. Yeah, if you have a pipe or something and it comes with a tool, put it over the edge of there to give you a little bit extra length. If you're going to use an open inch wrench that has a little bit more length on it, you can do that. You know what, let's try that. I'm going to go in with my open end wrench, which has a lot more arm on it, and do it. Oh yeah, so much easier. So the ones that come with the tool is convenient, but sometimes you need that extra length for some torque. Righty-tighty to push it off, pull it off, I should say. Excellent. I can feel it already. Cool. Alright, now, and there we go. So now it's off. Excellent. So don't forget to take this off because you will need it one day again. So we're going to get up in there and back it out so that we can have it ready to use next time and we don't accidentally throw away the whole piece. Alright, easy enough. So on each side, this is called the bottom bracket. You've got your spline here and the spline on the other side. On the crank side, it's really a long thread, so we're going to loosen the other side first. Alright, so if you were coming to this video because you were changing the crank arms, then those are the two pieces that you would have taken off, and then you're going to put your new ones on. In the reverse of what I just did, of course you don't need a puller tool because you're applying it. But this is what you'll be ending up with. We've already pulled this off and ready to go for our next stage, which is getting here at the splines. This is also the perfect point if you are gonna have your bike down for a few days and you planned on it that way while you're waiting on parts or going to buy parts. It's once you get this off, it's the perfect time to make your measurements from the edge of here to the edge of here. Not this outer piece, but the edge of here. There, let me get a pointer. So we're talking about the edge of this to the edge of this. Not out here. When you measure, we're going to edge to edge. In other words, the actual bicycle part. Mine measures 68 millimeters for the Totguard T266, which is 26-inch Totguard. And then you also want to measure from this end of the shaft to this end of the shaft to get your length. My estimate on it, because I don't have an exacting caliper tool, I'm using a measured tape, is about 123 millimeters. So when I check online, it actually says 122.5, so I figured that should be the right one. So measuring these things, and here gives you the size that you need. So in my case, I needed a 68 by 122.5 shaft, which for me, in this Totguard T266, or the 26-inch Totguard bike, is using the UN 300, which is by Shimano. Alright, We're going to replace that. Actually, let's take this out and do a quick comparison while it is here. Here we go. So Shimano part. It seems like Totguard is actually really universally made, meaning like they kind of got a lot of parts from different manufacturers and put it together, but they don't brand it on the bike, which is why the bike is so inexpensive. All right, so inside the bag, you see the bottom brackets and the pieces. Oh, look, they've got a little bit of thread lock already on the other end, which is beautiful. There's a little bit of grease inside of there, which is also beautiful. And how it's threaded. That's good. So a quick comparison shows me, let's get up in here, sorry about that. A quick comparison, see, it'll go in like this, shows me that these are exactly the same size. You can kind of see it, right? I'm just kind of holding it up with one hand to give you the idea. So should be fine. Excellent. And if I compare the edges here of the old one and the new one, they almost look the same, but like I said, it's cheap enough. I got this off of Amazon for I think 25 bucks. This is the year 2024, so I don't know if the prices are higher or lower now. It's worthy. Once you get the crank arms off, this is pretty much easy to get if you have the tool off. So why not? Not 100% necessary, but in my situation, why not? Because I would hate to put a new crank arm on there and it strips, because it actually turned out the shaft itself was also damaged. So I'm just saving myself a little time when it comes to that. Alright, so back to the project. So we're going to use our tool. It just kind of fits over and in. Nice little perfect fit. I'm going to use mine with the 1/2-inch drive. And this is where I was talking about the righty-tighty, lefty-loosey thing. So one side is a righty-tighty, the other side is the other direction. So to loosen it up, it's a lefty-loosey on this side, but on the other side, it's going to be the opposite. So I'm going to set it into place, hold it into position, and crank that out of there. Before I do that, I'm going to remove any excess junk from around it. In other words, get a clean surface to start out with. So we're going to set it into place, hold it into position so we don't mess up anything, and back it out. I know I've got my hand on it, but you can see how I'm kind of holding it. I'm holding it steady to keep it straight and set properly. And you can see I'm cranking it. Once you get it started, you're pretty much good. It feels loose enough that I can do it with my fingers. Excellent, yes. Easy enough, and out. All right, let's do the other side. So looking inside of there, it's like that. It's got the little bearings and everything, which is cool. It's really smooth. The Totguard, come on, focus. Yeah, let's zoom out. There we go. Totguard did use some decent stuff. People say that they're using second-hand parts or below quality parts. I personally think that they're using quality parts, but maybe not what the manufacturer wants to put their name on. So for the most part, everything is good. And if you did buy a Totguard and certain things like wear out and or break, they're easy enough to find with a little research online, or especially on Amazon, as I've discovered. Alright, let's get over to the other side. Other side is pretty much the same thing. Gonna set our splines in place, but this one is going to be twisting in the opposite direction to get it off. Alright, so this one, instead of lefty-loosey, we're going to be going righty-loosey. This is the, I'm going to call this the spindle side. This is the sprocket side, I should say. So we're going to pop it on there. Again, I'm going to just kind of brace it to hold it in position. This tool or something, it's a little bit loose and wobbly, so that's why you kind of need to make sure you hold it. You don't want to strip out your pieces. Let me get a better angle of this. Yeah, let's start off with this angle. And let's go the other way. Go this way instead. Trying to figure out a way to hold on to it, to hold it in position while I bracket. There we go. That was the perfect angle right there. As you see, it's loosening. See if it's enough to do by hand now. Yep, it is. So righty-loosey for the sprocket side. There we go. So the parts originally used in the Totguard is this one, and the size is 63. Excuse me, not 63, 68. I don't know if I said 68 or 63 earlier, but I got the 68. 68 122.5. So I did get it correct, 122.5. It also has some markings on the right side and left side. So if you were with the bike right side up, this is the right side, which is the sprocket side, which makes sense. So that helps you for reassembly. And that's what was included on mine. So if you don't have a way to measure your tool, but your bike is going to be down for a couple of days anyway, because you're planning on doing this and buying the part after, once you get this off, most bottom brackets will have a marking on it to say what size it is, so you can always match it up with that. Okay, next. Alright, so looking inside, got a lot of grease in there, which is basically some old grease. So I'm going to clean that out. So I'm going to just kind of get in with a little paper towel. I can feel the grittiness of it. Here, let's go ahead and put that in place. I can feel the grittiness of it. It's very gritty, very dirty. Oh yeah, very, very gritty actually. I don't have a throwaway towel. I only have my paper towels. So I'm going to follow this up with a little compressed air to make sure that there's no little pieces of lint from the paper towel, and get out any other left behind grease and stuff. Alright, hit it with some compressed air. Alright, that feels a lot better. Looks a lot better. Nice and cleaned up. So for my lube, I'm going to be using what I use for my car, which is a Mobil 1 synthetic grease. It's good for like wheel bearings and suspension and chassis and stuff like that. universal joints, so it should be just right. I'm just going to put a little dab of it on my threads, so literally a little dab on my threads like that, and a little dab on the other side. And that should have me set and ready to go. Alright, let's get our new one. We're going to start out on the sprocket side for installing. So this is what I'm replacing it with. Where is it? There we are. Shimano. And the size is the 68. And it doesn't show it on here, but the width of it is 122.5. We'll compare that to the original one real quick. So there we go. All right, looks good. It almost seems like it's a tiny bit longer, but actually that's acceptable. Better a millimeter or two longer than too short when it comes to replacing these. And like I was saying, the right side is the threaded. It also shows you on here right and left. So I'm going to hold it with my finger on the other end to make sure it's balanced. I'm going to back it off first to set, which remember on this side is everything is opposite. So I'm going to righty to back it off until I hear it set or feel it set. There it goes. Did you hear it? Here, I'll do it again, see if you can hear it. That little click. Now when I go in, it's threading nicely. And I can use my tool What's interesting is the Shimano one fits inside, my tool fits inside the Shimano splines really perfectly without any looseness. The original one from Totguard, that brand, had a lot of wobble in it. Remember when I was taking it off, it had a lot of wobble in it. So the Shimano is definitely more exacting to the dimensions. Alright, so we're going to have it in place. I'm going to hold it in position while I put the final cranking on it. I don't know what the torque spec is. You can get really technical for the torque spec, but I'm going to go with a tight and then a little, so to speak, as one guy put it. So it's tight and then a little, see it? There we go. Tight and not moving. Set and ready to go for that side. Let's do the other side. Let's get around here. I've already put the lube on that side, so we're ready to just thread it in. There you go. So this one has a little Loctite on it, which is awesome. But same thing like before. Now this side is the righty-tighty side, so this is the left side of the bike. So we're going to lefty-loosey until you hear it set or feel it set. There it goes. I just felt the click. That's so you don't get any cross threading. And now we're ready to go forward and in. Actually, it feels a little bit weird, so let's do it again. If it feels weird, back it off and do it again, guys. There we go. That was more of a defined click. All right. If it has too much stress to put it on, back off the other side. It might be just a little bit off alignment where it's adding too much tension in one side or another, balancing. So if you back off of this, in other words, don't tighten it all the way up like I did, this side will go on easier. Once you get both of them pretty much in place, then tighten them both up. That's another way to go. Hold in place like this. Basically holding the position so it doesn't wobble. Yeah, that's always possible. It's not being off on it. You saw that. This line's not full. So is it? Okay, find it. Now it's cranking down on the Teflon part. Sorry, blocking it. Try to hold it on so it's not moving around. We can mess up my wrist. It's a little bit more turns. So considering that that's giving me a little bit of resistance, I'm going to back off the other side. So righty-loosey. Backing off the other side should allow a little wiggle room. Righty-tighty. That feels a little bit better. This is the Teflon that they had around there. Teflon Loctite. It's almost set. Let's take a close look at it. I'll show it to you guys. It's almost set. What I want to do is a couple more turns, and I want that to be flush. So let's get a couple more turns and let's get it flush. You gotta be very careful. You don't want to strip out your splines. This tool cost me about $9, $10 on Amazon. So it could be that I have this balance issue because it's a super cheap tool, but I knew I was only going to use it one time. I didn't think it was going to cause me any problems. To blow out the residue. So if you're going to be doing this more than once, maybe spend an extra $5 on a tool. But there we go. Clean that out. Oh, my can of air is out of air, but there we go, we're set. And we're going to tighten back down the other side. Let me get in here. I'm basically getting any little particles of metal off of there. Feels good. Okay, and go back to tightening this side. Okay, let's go over there so you can watch me do it. There you go. See, inside splines are good. Alright, I feel the tension. And now the extra oomph. Good. I'm using my hand to hold it in place so it doesn't slip out. Feels good. Alright. And this side basically goes against the edge properly. Alright, so looking good so far. Moving on to the crank arms. Alright, so now we're gonna install our crank arms. I got my Shimano. And it's easy, it just kind of slides on the shaft basically. There's a little rubber gasket here. Alright, looks like that stays in place. I don't see that on my original one. And it doesn't come off easily, so that stays in place. I'm gonna line it up. And since we don't have the other side on, it doesn't matter which one we use, but we do want to make sure that we don't have any issue with our chain. So I'm just kind of making sure that our chain is in the proper position. Just gonna turn it on to the shaft. Just gonna kind of throw it on there. And we're gonna use our 8mm that we took off earlier, or if you had new ones. And it's gonna go in. I don't know what the torque is, so we're gonna do that same thing. We're gonna do tight and then a little extra oomph on it to get it set in place. I need actually a longer handle to get a better torque on it, but for now I'm just going to kind of put it in position. So even with my shorty arm, just changing the chains to the middle sprocket, make it easier for me. So what's it doing now? It's wedging in. See, now I can change it to the higher sprocket because originally when I started it was on the higher chain. So I can tell the alignment is good, that's for sure. And now I'm giving it the extra oomph, which is a good torque. Main reason why I'm not worrying too much about the torque is because I don't have a torque tool that measures inches per pound. I only have the pounds. So I don't want to be off. And this is a one-time thing. Alright, so there we go. That's tight plus the factor. Alright. Feels good. Moving on to the other side. Most important thing when doing your crank arm on the other side is to make sure you put it in the correct position before you start tightening it down. In other words, make sure it's on the opposite pedal. So if I did this straight up and down, this one is going to go like this. But before we do that, let's put our sensor back on that we took off earlier. So very carefully, we don't want to put too much stress on our cables. Very carefully, very slowly, very easily, slides onto the shaft. I'm doing it like this so it slides on evenly. It's a little tension on there, so let me put some lube on it just to help it slide better. A little bit of lube. Actually, that is pretty much okay, and it helps to clean out that middle part. Alright, let's slide it on carefully. I'm going to use my big socket as a way to evenly push this in. So I'm kind of wobbling it as I'm going, which gives it a little piece to go into. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is, with a little bit of bang pressure, slide it on there. Hopefully yours will be easier than this. I'm not going to slide it all the way on. I'm going to make sure the grooves are lined up first. Remember the grooves on the back of this? I'm going to make sure those are lined up. So to show you, I stopped at this point because now I'm going to make sure the grooves are lined up. See how you can barely see in there. If I do it like this, the grooves are a little bit better lined up to go in the hole. But actually I'm going to crank it right there. To which, remember, we did the alignment test earlier. So that should be the right position. Alright, so looking at it again a little bit closer. In those grooves, come on, focus. There we go. Doesn't want to focus. Alright, we're going to make sure those grooves are lined up and continue it in. They look good so far. Again, what this is doing is giving me a circle all the way around of even pressure, so that as I hammer it, I got even push all the way around. And I can see it's spinning good, so I have a good fitment. Alright, that's in place. Next we're going to put on our crank arm. There we go. Alright, so where's my crank arm? There it is. Nope, that's my, oh, here it is. Going to go with the Shimano. Remember, opposite. So opposite. I'm going to do this straight up and down. That way I know this one just goes like that. Pop your 8mm back in there. And tighten appropriately. I'm going to hold this one for leverage at the bottom and tighten it up. Again, I don't know the torque, so we're just kind of tightening it and then going with a little extra oomph to give it a good hold. There we go. So that's tight, and then here's the extra oomph. There we go. So that's a good, literally, and locks it in place. Now the Shimano ones real nicely come with a little dust cap, so we're going to pop those on. We're going to take the pedals off of our original, or if you had new pedals, just going to screw your pedals in, and you're pretty much done. And that's how you do it, guys. That's if you came here just for the crank arm change and you stayed to the end, you learned how to change out your bottom bracket. And this is on the e-bike Totguard T266, which is 26-inch version of the Totguard e-bike electric bike. Thanks for watching. I have a playlist of all of my e-bike videos, things that I'm doing to this Totguard. This is not my bike, by the way. This is my son's bike. He uses it daily for school, going to work out with the gym, at the gym with his friends, and hanging out. So I keep this running for him. I show him how to do stuff. He also has YouTube videos, but he has not featured the Totguard on his YouTube video, so I get to put it on mine. Alright, thanks for watching.
Hey Dad,
Yeah.
is that why you don't have a video of how you remove pedals? Because you do it in a weird way?
Shut up!